Welcome to the Reheat, the live version of the Reheat on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook. That's RT Young. Thank you for watching. If you're here, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and go to Inside Texas. Use that first link in our description, or use the link to RT's story in our description that we're about to talk about. Sign up for 50% off with the Ultimate Fan Bundle. That's the best of Inside Texas, the best of On 3, the best of Rivals. So you'll get all the way through the end of spring ball, all our updates there with the Orange-White Fan Day this Saturday, recruiting updates, basketball portal updates, baseball coverage, everything over there on Inside Texas, including a story, RT, that you wrote about Michael Taaffe. I'll just kind of give it to you. What made you want to write a big feature story about Michael Taaffe and his journey to the NFL?
Yeah, well, I think Michael Taaffe in a lot of ways embodies what people grew up loving about their relationships with players in college football. I think he really, is that all-American guy who was a walk-on. I mean, he has so many relatable parts of his journey and story. I think with Michael Taaffe, you can a little bit quickly realize, oh no, I'm devolving into cliche a little bit, and I don't want to do that because he's a lot more than that. So I think it was just to talk about, man, how did this local kid who grew up loving the Longhorns accomplish his dreams and go from being a overlooked walk-on to an All-American to somebody who, he might have a chance of getting drafted on day 2 of the NFL draft. And I think he's going to contribute for a long time in the NFL. But man, I had talked to him and we'd gotten in touch with him, and he said that he wanted to do the story. But then I was fortunate enough to go to Pro Day, and Pro Day just provided the greatest hook of all time for that story, with him playing wide receiver again for a day like he did for the Westlake Chaparrals, and playing a little pitch and catch with backup quarterback from Texas, Matthew Caldwell, because Matthew Caldwell didn't have any wide receivers who were going out for the draft themselves. So he had no draft eligible skill position players besides tight end Jack Indries, and then volunteer current Longhorn walk-on Red Anderson. So Michael Taaffe, being the consummate teammate that he is, he wasn't going to let Matthew Caldwell go out there alone and throw passes down a receiver, down a couple wide receivers. I think Quinn Ewers had 4 or 5 to throw to last year. So Taaffe got out there. They connected on 7 of 8 passes that Caldwell threw him looked awesome, but it was the one that they didn't connect on that really caught my eye. And it was because Caldwell threw a deep post to the middle of the field, probably 50 yards to Taaffe. Taaffe was running to catch up to it. He lays out completely parallel with the ground, ends up dropping the catch at the end of the play. But man, the whole bubble there in the indoor practice facility on campus just went wild, because the amazing display of effort, of give a crapness for somebody who went through their own pro day themselves to go through a workout out of position for a teammate who I hope Matthew Caldwell becomes the next Matt Castle someday. But the reality is Matthew Caldwell is probably not going to get drafted. And I was sitting behind Arch Manning at the time, and he turns to the staffer next to him and goes, "That's a dude you want on your team." And I was sitting in front of Diane Taaffe, Michael's mother, and she was the only person in the whole bubble that just didn't look amazed. She just had a smile on her face and just was shaking her head like, I've seen this behavior before, going back to when the Taaffe boys, three boys and a girl, were little kids wrestling and playing sports in the backyard at their house here in Austin. And I guess youngest brother Michael was trying to keep up with everybody. So yeah, it was just a great story. But that pro day thing really, really framed and spoke for itself in a lot of ways.
One of the big points of your story, and I think Taaffe has definitely talked about this a lot. He's very open about this, but is just legacy. And he was thinking about legacy not only this past year, and I'll let you reveal why he had to think about legacy, the multiple reasons why. But even as a senior at Westlake in 2020, as he's trying to figure out if he's going to be a college football player, he didn't have as many options maybe with the decision as he would have liked. But he had a decision to make as far as legacy dating back to 6 years ago, not just dating back to last year after the Cotton Bowl and before the previous year's NFL draft process.
Yeah, Michael Taaffe obviously won 2 state championships with Westlake, with Todd Dodge and Cade Klubnik, and really put himself on the map in that second state championship when he had the one-handed interception with Quinn Ewers. We'll talk about that in a second because that's a great story that he revealed that I didn't realize. But besides Ivy League schools, Michael Taaffe really only had interest in one D1 school, which was Rice. I never really totally got if he fully committed or what the story there, but there was definitely a moment where it seemed like he was going to go to Rice. But I think at the end of the day, he thought like, hey, I'll go here. I'll probably play. It'll be one of the best universities in the world. I'll probably get a good job. This will probably lay out the red carpet for me to have a good life. But ultimately, it's not what I want. What I want and what I've been thinking and dreaming about since I was a little kid was to play football at the University of Texas, star there, win a national championship, go to the NFL, and win a Super Bowl. And you really got to commend the fact that he heard the voice of young Michael in his mind, telling him that this isn't what you ultimately would want, even though it seems like a pretty darn good path. So that's what led him to the University of Texas to walk on originally for Steve Sarkisian in his first year, coincided with that 5-7 season, and then had offers after his freshman season when he was still just a walk-on, long before the Arch Manning recruitment really got going, that he could transfer and get a full ride and get some NIL money. And then he even had offers not just to go to the NFL last year, which he almost did after the loss to Ohio State. He even had offers to jump into the transfer portal for double the money that he was making at Texas and go to another school for 1 year. But I think he, once again, heard the voice of young Michael saying, like, well, is that really a fulfilling life? Is that how I want to be remembered? Do I want to be remembered as somebody who's like, oh, yeah, he went to Texas for a little bit. He was pretty good. He was All-American, but ultimately he left. So I don't really remember much about Michael Taaffe. Or do I want to be remembered as one of the most loyal Longhorns of all time that put my heart, soul, body on the line, which is for absolutely how he's going to be remembered because he did what a lot of people don't do in this era of college football. And not to really say that it's wrong or right. It's just the current era that we live in. In Michael Taaffe these days, he's a rarity in the way that he conducted his career while he was on the 40 acres.
And I think we've heard Quinn Ewers talk about that last year. Ty Simpson's getting some discussion or has had some discussion about that with him this year for staying at Alabama. And it definitely changes how people perceive you. Like, I think maybe I was going to say Fernando Mendoza, but he's just such an outlier that everybody, even at Cal, is like, yeah, good job, buddy. But like, think of Carson Beck at Georgia. All in all, you look at just at the history books, Carson Beck's career at Georgia is going to be seen as, you know what, pretty good one. And then he went to Miami, and who knows who's going to claim him now. I think Miami will. I think Georgia fans are understanding enough to realize that Carson Beck did good things for the Dogs. But that's a player who you're not quite sure what his legacy is. And if Michael Taaffe decides to leave after trying to do everything that he did to win a national championship and talk about that and all the other things that we're going to get to in a second that just tie him to Austin and the state of Texas, I don't want to say it would have marred his legacy because that's not for me to say, but it definitely would have changed it. And I think Taaffe was cognizant enough to do that. Speaking of, it also dove into, just some of his connections here in Austin, and some of them, unfortunately, have been the result of tragedy. And why he wears the numbers that he wears. 14, I believe it was, at Westlake was for a fallen friend. Didn't get the chance to wear 48 or 16, and I'll let you explain why. But he is so connected to Austin that so much of what makes Michael Taaffe is here in the city, and it would have been weird if he had decided to go anywhere else to try to be Michael Taaffe.
Yeah, absolutely. So 14 was actually Michael Taffe's high school number, and then when he got to UT, he wore 36 originally for Jake Ellinger, because that was Jake Ellinger's high school number at Westlake. And obviously, when he was a walk-on, I think he might have had a little bit less say in what numbers were available. And 36, probably as a safety, is not in high demand, so he wore that his first year to honor Jake Ellinger, his high school teammate, who he won a state championship with at Westlake. But then he changed to number 16, which was his friend Jackson Coker's number. And Jackson Coker passed away in a vehicle accident in 2021, I believe. It was one of his best friends. So honored both of their legacies. Obviously, you saw him last year at SEC Media Day wearing the initials on his tie of the counselors and campers who passed away at Camp Mystic during last year's floods, to really raise support and awareness for what was going on, and generate some support for those families who are grieving. And all of that resulted in December, after Michael Taffe's fifth year here in Austin, him getting the Danny Werfel Trophy, which really exemplifies and is awarded to somebody who models community service off the field. So a huge accomplishment. But he mentioned something. I don't want to give away his whole quote, but why he's chosen to wear those numbers is really, he feels like the best way to honor somebody is to continue to live how they lived. So in a lot of ways, he not only has the voice of young Michael telling him, stay at Texas, stay on your dreams, but he also feels like he has kind of like these voices from friends like Jackson Coker or Jake Ellinger with him, carrying on their legacy, trying to live in the way that they lived and went about in doing their part in the world, which I thought was really inspiring and something that everybody could definitely model and learn from a little bit.
Before we keep going, got to show some love to our sponsor. Got a new one, too.
If you've ever been caught in the rain without a jacket, at a game, at a tailgate, on the sideline, walking to the car, you already know the problem. Your rain jacket was at home because it was too bulky to bring. But that's why the Bearskin Heavy Storm Rain Jacket packs into its own pocket. Stash it in your truck. Throw it in your bag. Keep it in your glove. It's always with you. It weighs almost nothing. The second the sky opens up, you pull it out and you're covered. We're talking 20,000 millimeter waterproof. That's expedition grade. It's not a flimsy poncho. It's a real tape seam, sealed zipper rain jacket that handles sustained downpours, and it's completely PFAS free. There are no forever chemicals, which is more than most outdoor brands could say. And here's the part I really like. It zips directly into the Bearskin hoodie. So on a cold, rainy game day, you zip the rain jacket into the hoodie, and you got a full, warm, and waterproof system. When the rain stops, unzip the jacket, pack it into its pocket, and just keep moving. Right now, Bearskin's running 60% off the Heavy Storm Rain Jacket with free shipping. So text INSIDE to 36912, INSIDE to 36912, and they'll send you a link to grab one at 60% off. So keep it in your truck, keep it in your bag, but next time it rains, you're the guy who's ready. Text INSIDE to 36912. That's INSIDE 36912, and they'll send you a link to grab one at 60% off. Again, INSIDE to 36912.
Oh my gosh, was that Glenn Powell?
Oh man! All right. Hey, that rain jacket came in handy this past weekend, so appreciate Bearskin. One thing that I always kind of get drawn to is, we can go over mock drafts and where he may be going and things like that. He's always been very confident, and he always knows that whatever chip he has on his shoulder is always going to help him. He ran what he needed to run at the NFL Combine. He's one of the more just instinctual and well-studied players I feel like Texas has had in the secondary for a while. He has some physical limitations, but what he does is he makes up for it with his head, his preparation, and his tenacity. And I think that's going to lead him to the NFL draft and lead him to an opportunity. He's not going to be a first or second rounder, but he's going to be a guy picked on day 3, and it's going to be awesome. One thing, and again, recommend everybody go read the story. It is in our description. That's a guy you want on your team. Again, that Arch Manning quote, perfect for the headline. But one thing that I really am just always coming back to is we talked about Michael Taaffe, the Longhorn, and Michael Taaffe, this person from Austin who's done so much in his community, and someone who I think what you wrote about well, and I don't want to, I don't want to give too much away, is he didn't really figure out how to process losing in 2024 and then not reaching the national title in 2025. But one of the things that will help him with this process, I feel like, is that you can be Michael Taaffe, the kid growing up in Westlake, wanting to be a Longhorn, getting roughhoused by your brothers and sister, getting, overlooked and stuff like that. All the same, you have these dreams, but everybody who's a football player, they want to hold up that Lombardi trophy. And Michael Taaffe is no different than any other football player, whether it be someone like Matthew Stafford or Jalen Hurts or I can't even remember who won the Super Bowl this past year, but any of those types of players who have these dreams, he is one of those types of players, and he's a competitor, and it's hard to think he's going to do anything less than whatever's necessary to be successful in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think you saw at Texas what really was a big contributor in putting Michael Taaffe on his path is he obviously had individual goals, but he had a deep love for Texas. And the fact that he loved Texas and wanted Texas, to use the cliche term, to be back, to be good again, and wanted Texas to win, caused him to work harder, caused him to follow the leaders that were on campus like Roshan Johnson and Bijan Robinson and Jalen Ford, and then to become a leader himself. And so I think what he modeled that in helping change the culture at Texas. And so I think what he said that he was really attracted to, and really he didn't tip his hand as far as like, oh, is there a team that you're pulling for that you hope drafts you or anything like that. He's too media trained by Mr. John Bianco to give away anything like that spoiler related. But he just said he wanted to go to a culture and an organization with great leaders, both on the sideline and in the locker room and in the front office. And that he just wanted to be able to learn more and more from great leaders and soak that up so that he could then become a great leader himself. So I think you always hear these people who are more focused on the process than the results. It was something that I feel like once Nick Saban really started saying that, it became just a huge part of the cultural lexicon when it comes to greatness in sports. But I think Michael Taaffe really lives and embodies that, where he obviously has goals that he's not afraid to talk about, like winning the national championship, like winning the Super Bowl, but it's in the day-to-day things and his just constant work and his constant cheering on and ability to come alongside his teammates and help them get better, which you saw with Matthew Caldwell at Pro Day, that I think is going to make him a long-standing contributor in the NFL, because I think he's going to latch on to either a really good organization and elevate them just one more floor, or he's going to be the type of guy who resets the culture at a team and an organization that really needs it.
Again, a great read. Suggest that everybody go take the time to look at it. RT, every year you seem to get an opportunity to do one of these big features. Last year was David Benda. This year was Michael Taaffe. And I don't know if you'll get some one-on-one time with Arch Manning ahead of next year, but
I don't think that one's happening. Do you want me to tell the Quinn Ewers story? You want people to go to the story or go to the article itself to check that one out?
Why not? Because I think everybody has like an understanding of that one, and the quotes were kind of there when Quinn first arrived at Texas, but I don't think there's an understanding of how the competitiveness began in that relationship and then what it evolved to.
Yeah, so obviously it was the COVID season, I believe, so they're playing in the state championship, Southlake Carroll and Westlake. Michael Taaffe is either planning on committing to Rice or he's going to commit to Rice. Quinn Ewers is obviously committed to Ohio State, and then he is fixing to reclassify to where he ends up in Columbus a year early, so he won't ultimately come back to Carroll the next year. He throws the famous one-handed interception to Michael Taaffe that really puts Michael Taaffe on the map. But what you don't realize is there was a ton of trash talk and a huge rivalry before that game at Jerry World, where they were both teams, both fan bases were going back and forth on social media. Taaffe and Ewers were in each other's DMs after the fact, going at it. And then once Ewers got to campus a couple years later, the rivalry was apparently still a thing. But during Quinn's first winter workout, once he transferred from Columbus, he jumped into Michael Taaffe's line and had just a great delivery of something where he told Michael Taaffe, "Man, I didn't know you could jump that high." And they apparently squashed the beef, and it's all good now. The day that I interviewed Taaffe, he had just gotten back from a trip with Quinn Ewers. So I think they're all good now. They obviously had a lot of battles together on the football field. But I always wondered, after that state championship and then playing together and then having just that moment that's so synonymous, like one of the great plays of Texas high school football lore, like what was their relationship like afterwards? Assume they're both high character, classy guys. They squashed the beef, but it was interesting really finding out how that beef indeed was squashed there in the locker room. So and there was a couple more things he shared about that story, and definitely dive deep into the article because he shares a lot about his famous recruitment of Arch Manning and how he laid it all out there to get Arch Manning to Texas. And obviously he wasn't the only recruiter on that. Steve Sarkisian and AJ Milwee and others had a lot to do with it, but Taaffe definitely, he gets an assist for it for sure.
Absolutely. Again, I recommend everybody go check that out. It's it's one of the links in our description. I think it's pretty prominent. Or you can go to that first link in our description. Either way, if you're not signed up for Inside Texas, you can use one of those links to join, 50% off, or you can use that QR code at the top left of the screen. The Ultimate Fan Bundle, that's Inside Texas, that's On3, that's Rivals, all the best Texas football, basketball, baseball coverage you'll find over there. So can't wait to see everybody. Hope everybody reads it. RT, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. See you next time on the Reheat on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.